Good morning, students. Today we are going to discuss the chapter number 6, that is Indian Constitution. It is there for the fourth semester Electronics and Communication Engineering and Electronic Instrumentation and Control Engineering. And the name of the subject is Professional Ethics and Indian Constitution. So the chapter Indian Constitution, which carries 40 marks for the final semester and exam. This is very important and the easiest chapter among all the chapters here. So the videos what I had done is I had divided into two sections here. So I made it part 1 and part 2. So now we are going to discuss the part first section, that is what the introduction section here. So first we start with the Indian Constitution. So the basics or the introduction of Indian Constitution here. The word the Constitution is the derived from the Latin word constituo, that means to form or to establish. So basically, the constitution of a country, it establishes the basic structure of the political system under which its people, that is the citizens of the country, are being governed. So basically, it is going to give a structure in the political system, and where the people they are going to under which the people are being governed here. So one more interesting thing about the Indian Constitution is what it is the longest written constitution in the world, so which uses what the total of 1,17,369 words in English language here. So the Constitution of India is considered to be the supreme law of land, as it lays down the framework of fundamental political principles, so establishing the structure, procedures or powers and duties of the government, and mentions the fundamental rights, directive principles and duties of the citizens here. So in the absence of constitution, so there will be disorders or lawlessness. Hence every country, whether democratic or communist, must possess a constitution here. So if there is no constitution in the country, definitely there won't be any law in the country here. So right, as a citizen, so right, they behave like what they want here. So right, in order to run a country smoothly, so we need a framework, or we need a proper structure here. So that is given by our Indian Constitution here. So next we are going to see the important concept. So that is the silent features of Indian Constitution, which is very important from the exam point of view, because it is asked 4 times in the previous exams here. The first feature of Indian Constitution is, so it is the lengthiest written constitution in the world. And the second one is, so it is what the parliamentary form of government. So that is the Constitution of India has given the parliamentary structure of government both in the center as well in the state. So in center there will be a president as the constitutional head of the state, and but the real power is given to the Council of Ministers, and whose head is the Prime Ministers. Same thing even in the state. The governor is what the constitutional head of the state, but real power is given to the Council of Ministers, whose head is the Chief Minister here. So that is the second feature. Third feature is it is partly rigid and partly flexible. So the word rigid and flexible, it means what? The constitution may be called rigid or flexible on the basis of making changes, procedures being difficult or easy. There are certain laws or a certain act which we can easily change it, and there are certain laws which we cannot easily change. So that is what we call it as what partly rigid and partly flexible here. And the fourth feature is fundamental rights. So we call it as what Nagarika Hakkugalu. So our constitution has established the fundamental rights of Indian citizens in its text document. So right to equality, right to live, right to freedom of thoughts, right to expression. So all these are what the fundamental rights here. So next feature is fundamental duties. So that is Nagarika Kartavyaгаlu. The constitution has added 10 fundamental duties of for citizens of India. So later we are going to see in detail. And next feature is the Constitution of India is drawn from different sources. So that is the Indian Constitution. It is what it is. Basically, it is not a original constitution, and it is borrowed from borrowed constitution by following certain things from certain countries here. For example, the system of parliamentary democracy was borrowed from the British Constitution. the provisions of emergency powers from Germany Constitution, the fundamental rights and concept of written constitution was borrowed from the USA. So it is what basically it is not a original one. So it is, since it is borrowed from the different countries. So that is the one more feature. And next one is adult suffrage. So adult suffrage in the sense what under the Indian Constitution it is clearly mentioned that every man and woman so above the age of 18 years have the right to elect representative for the legislature. So that is adult suffrage. And next feature is a secular state. So means a secular state means it has no religion of its own as recognized religion of the state. It treats all religions equally. So irrespective of your religions, everyone is treated equally. Okay, so that is the feature. Second one, next one is single citizenship. So in single citizenship means what? In India there is no state citizenship. So we call it as what? There is only one citizenship, that is we call it as the citizen of India. So we won't call any citizen by citizen of Maharashtra or citizen of Karnataka here. So there is no state citizenship. So we have what? A citizen of India here. And next one is establishment of welfare state. A welfare state is committed to welfare of the people of the country. So basically a welfare state is what? A system whereby a state undertake to protect the health and well-being of its citizens by giving grants, pensions and other benefits here. And next feature is official language. So in our India there are so many languages we speak, as we all know, but our constitution has declared Hindi as the basic, the official or the national language here, to bring all the people in this common platform for all purposes here. And next one is creation of all India services. So our constitution has provided an article for the establishment of all India services like IAS, IPS, IFS. These officials are appointed by the central government to all the different states here. And last feature is the special status is given to the Jammu and Kashmir. So according to our constitution, a separate constituent assembly was constituted for Jammu and Kashmir, and a separate constitution was drawn for Jammu and Kashmir. So this is what about the features of Indian Constitution. So next we are going to learn what do you mean by preamble and what are the objectives of preamble of our Constitution. Basically, preamble is it is what our Constitution, it begins with a preamble here. So we call it as what? The preamble of a Constitution is the introduction to the Constitution here. So basically it declares the aims and objectives of the Constitution. It explains the purposes of constituents and underlying philosophy here. The preamble of our Constitution clarifies two purposes here. First one is it specifies the sources from which our Constitution derives its authority. So clearly it says we the people of India. So basically that is the source. And second one is it also summarizes the main objectives such as sovereignty, socialism, secularism, justice, liberty, equality, fraternity, republic, democratic, unity and integrity and dignity of the individual here. So next we are going to discuss in detail the main objectives of preamble of our Constitution. The first objective of preamble of our Constitution is we the people of India. So basically the words we the people clearly states that the Constitution gets its authority from the people and not from any other state or any other sections of the society, or not even from the formal rulers of the Indian state before independence here. Second one is sovereign. Sovereign state means the supremacy, self-government and complete independence. So supremacy in the sense what? The state having more power and authority here. And third one is socialist. So India is a socialist nation. Basically a socialist system provides an equal opportunity to all the people to share the nation's wealth. The main objective of the socialist system is to minimize the gap between the rich and the poor, to bring the balance between the rich and the poor here. And fourth one is secular state. So India is a secular nation. It means there is no state religion. The state treats all the religions as same and equal and protects all religions equally. And next one, fifth one is justice. Our constitution highlights that the state will have to treat all its citizens as equal before law. Accordingly, it is the duty of all in the society to maintain law and order. And next one is liberty. Our constitution assures all its people the liberty, that is the basic rights from freedom such as freedom of thought, expression, belief, faith and worship. And next one, equality. Our constitution assures all its citizens the right to equality of status and attempts to provide an opportunity for individual growth here. And next one, fraternity. Our constitution aims to promote a feeling of fraternity or brotherhood. So means it treats all citizens should be like brothers and sisters among all the citizens here. And next one is a republic. So India is a republic country. So that is our constitution has provided an elected head of the state called the president. The republic form of the government is not ruled by a king or a queen here. So the president of India is the head of the Indian Republic, who is elected representative of the people here. And next one is democratic. India is a democratic nation. As a democratic nation, the people of India can elect members from among themselves to form their own government and for their own welfare purposes. Democratic government suggests a form of government which is of the people, by the people and for the people. And next one is unity and integrity of the nation. So it means in the critical events like war and threats, internal revolts, communal violences, citizens of the country must forget all the differences of opinions and come together to promote national independence and safeguard the nation. So it is the duty of every citizen to fight against the people or to fight against the terrorists if they attack on the Indians here, right? So last one is dignity of the individual here. For an individual to lead a dignified life, better living conditions, better conditions of work, a decent standard of life, living free from all sorts of exploitation and discriminations are certainly essential, and indeed all these measures promote and maintain the dignity of the individual here. So next we are going to discuss the fundamental rights of every citizen. So the fundamental rights are what are the basic rights given to all the citizens by the constitutions of the country, and which are essential for man to lead a decent and respectable life here. There are six fundamental rights guaranteed by the constitution. The first one is right to equality. So that is what equality before the law. So giving equal opportunity in all matters of employment. Then prohibition of discrimination on any citizen on grounds of either caste or religion, etc. here. And next one is right to freedom. So that is what the freedom of speech and expression, right to practice any profession or occupation here. And third one is the right against exploitation. So prohibition of all kinds of forced labor or child labor, etc. So fourth fundamental right is the right to freedom of religion. So that is it is nothing but what right to practice one's religion, and no forced conversions has to take place, and we should not harm any other communities. And fifth one is the cultural and education rights. So that is protect and promote minorities language, literature, culture, and open their educational institutions. So minorities language means basically the language spoken by the minority of the population of a territory here. And last one is the right to constitutional remedies, that is provisions for the courts to protect the people's fundamental rights and for the enforcement of public duties. So these are what some of the fundamental rights for every citizen here. So next we are going to discuss the fundamental duties. The fundamental duties of our constitutions are the code of conduct for the citizens of the country, which are expected to be followed in their actions and reactions here. The fundamental duties of individuals are like this. So first one is the citizen of the country should abide by the constitution, and they should respect the national flag as well as the national anthem. And the second one is they have to cherish and follow the noble ideals which inspired our national struggle for freedom. And next one is to protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. Next, to defend the country and render national service when called upon to do so. Next, to protect or to promote harmony and spirit of common brotherhood among the people, all the people of India, beyond boundaries of language, religion, regional differences, and to give up practices that are harmful and offensive to the dignity of women. So next fundamental duty is to value and preserve the rich heritage of our composite culture. Next, to protect and promote the natural environment including forest, lakes, rivers and wildlife. And next, to develop a scientific temper, humanism, spirit of inquiry and reform. So next, to safeguard the public property and to curb violence. And last one is to strive towards excellence in all spheres of individual and collective activity, so that the nation constantly rises to higher levels of endeavor and achievement. So next we are going to discuss the directive principles of state policy. So directive principles of state policy, they are the guidelines to the central and state government of India to promote and uphold the moral of the welfare state here. A welfare state is nothing but it is the one in which the government stresses more upon the health and well-being of its citizens by way of extending grants and pension benefit to the needy persons here. The directive principles of the state policy are, the first one is the state will promote the welfare of its people and reduce inequalities. Next, the right to adequate livelihood and equal pay for equal work, legal help to poor and needy persons. Third one is formation or organization of village panchayats, so in order to solve the problems which arises within the villages. And the fourth one is right to work and to get education. So next, give workers opportunity to earn a living age, so extend maternity relief. Next one, promotion of uniform civil code. So basically uniform civil code in the sense replacing the personal laws based on major religious community in the country with a common rule for every citizen here. So next, seventh one is provide childhood care to all the children below the age of 6. So basically the childhood care means what? A development of children which includes the physical, language or social development till the age of 6 years. And we have to provide the fair education and economic opportunities for the other backward classes like SC, STs and etc. Then we have to raise the living standard of living and improve upon public health. And next one is prohibition of cow slaughter, so that is go hatya, protection of forest and wildlife, modernization of agriculture and animal husbandry. And next one is preservation of monuments. Next, separation of executive from judiciary. And last one is promotion of international peace and security here. And next we are going to discuss the important concept, the structure of parliament. So basically the parliament, the head of the parliament is the president here. The constitution of India establishes the parliamentary form of government both at the center and the state here. The parliament is basically divided into two types. So that is Rajya Sabha and Lok Sabha here. So the Rajya Sabha is called the upper house, or it is called what, the Council of States here. And under Rajya Sabha there are 238 members elected by the state MLAs plus 12 members nominated by the president for contribution to art, literature, science and social service. The speaker, basically he is the vice president, will be the speaker for the Rajya Sabha. At present we have the Venkaiah Naidu as the speaker of Rajya Sabha, and he is elected by both Lok and Rajya Sabha members, and the term of the members of the Rajya Sabha is 6 years here. And few examples of the Rajya Sabha members what we have seen in the present years is the Prabhakar Kore or P. Chidambaram, then Oscar Fernandez, then Sharad Pawar. So all these are what they were the members of the Rajya Sabha here. And next one is the Lok Sabha. Lok Sabha, it is also called the lower house, or it is also called House of the People here. So total there are what 543 members elected by the general population, that is constituency, plus 2 Anglo-Indians elected by the President of India here. And the term of the members of the Lok Sabha is 5 years, and the 2 Anglo-Indians is elected by the President of India here. So basically Anglo-Indians are the one, Anglo-Indian is a person, is someone whose family is partly British and partly Indian, or an English person who lives or has lived for a long time in India, so he is called an Anglo-Indian. So the example, the Anglo-Indian members of Lok Sabha were actor George Baker and Richard Hay, who is a professor of economics from Kerala. They were the Anglo-Indians. And to give few examples here, members of Lok Sabha, we have Suresh Angadi or so Anna Sahib Jole from the Chikkodi constituency. Basically, they are the members of the Lok Sabha here. And the speaker of the Lok Sabha is basically elected by the Lok Sabha members, and presently we have Sumitra Mahajan as the speaker of the Lok Sabha here. So next we are going to learn the structure of Union Executive. So the structure of Union Executive, under the structure of Union Executive, so mainly we have a President, Vice President, Prime Minister and Council of Ministers. So we are going to see one by one here. First we are going to learn who is the President, what is his position, what is the basic eligibility to become a President, and what are the functions or powers of President here. So basically the executive head of the Indian Republic is a President here. The President is the head of the state and the first citizen of the country, and the official residence of the President is at New Delhi, so it is termed as Rashtrapati Bhavan. To become a President, there are some basic eligibility criteria for appointment as the President of India. So first one is he must be a citizen of India. Second, he or she must have completed the age of at least 35 years. And third one is he or she must be qualified for election as a member of Lok Sabha. And next one, the President's term of office is 5 years. And next one, the presidential candidate should deposit rupees of 15,000. And so last one is must not hold any office of profit under any government. So these are what some of the eligibility criteria for appointment as a president here. And next we are going to discuss the important thing, the powers and functions of President. So first function or power is he appoints prime ministers and other ministers on the advice of Prime Minister, and even he appoints the judges of the Supreme Court or High Courts, or the governor of the state, chief election commissioner and chairman and members of UPSC. And third one is he gives approval to the bills passed by the two houses of the parliament, so that is Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha. And next function is he nominates 12 members of Rajya Sabha and also nominate Anglo-Indian members to the Lok Sabha. And next one is the President has the power to clemency, means Kshamadhan. Sixth one is the budget also needs the approval from the President. So once every year we have seen there will be a central budget or a railway budget. So once the budget is done, finally they need the approval from the President here. And next one is the members of Finance Commission and Planning Commission are appointed by the President itself. Next, he has the power to declare the war or peace with an approval of the cabinet. Next, the chief of the army, so that is general, or the navy, we call it as an admiral, and the air force, that is air chief marshal, they are appointed by the President here. And next, President appoints ambassadors to represent our country and abroad, so that is for the different other nations here. And he can impose president rule in the state. Next we are going to discuss regarding the Vice President of India. The Vice President of India is one of the second highest honors, dignity and position. Basically the Vice President of India is elected by the members of both houses of the parliament, and in order to become the Vice President of India, so there are certain eligibility criteria. First one is he must be a citizen of India. Second, she should completed the age of at least 35 years. And third one is should be qualified to the election as a member of Rajya Sabha. And fourth one, he must not hold any office of profit under any government. Last one, the vice president is elected for the term of 5 years here. And the powers and functions are: first one, he look after the proceedings of the Rajya Sabha, and second, in the absence of president, the vice president itself acts as the president of India, and third one is he certifies the bills passed by the Rajya Sabha, and fourth one is he can adjourn the house or he can postpone the house, and third one is the Prime Minister of India. So basically the Prime Minister is the head of the Council of the Ministers in the Parliament of India. The Prime Minister is the leader of the majority party of the Lok Sabha. The Prime Minister is elected from among the elected members of the majority party in the Lok Sabha, and he or she is appointed by the President of India as the head of the Council of the Ministers here. Basically the Prime Minister is a link between the President as well as the Cabinet here. Some of the powers and functions of Prime Ministers are to act as a leader of Lok Sabha, second, to appoint the Council of Ministers, third one, to remove and appoint ministers from the cabinet as and when necessary, fourth one, to reshuffle the cabinet as and when necessary, fifth one, to represent the country at national and international conferences and act as the chief spokesman of the government in foreign affairs, sixth one, he communicates to President for all decisions of the Council of Ministers, 7, he takes all the members into confidence, he is the chairman of Planning Commission and makes the economic plans, and 8th one is he should perform and exercise duties as head of the government here. And next one is Council of Ministers. So as indicated by the Constitution, there shall be a Council of Ministers headed by the Prime Minister to aid and advise the President of India in matters of administration. The Council of Ministers are appointed by the President on the advice of the Prime Minister. The selection of ministers is done by the Prime Minister itself here. The various functions performed by the Council of Ministers are all ministers have to perform their work of responsible department. Second, all the ministers have to answer the questions regarding the activities of his department. And next we are going to discuss the structure of judiciary. So it is quite natural that always some disputes or fight arises between the persons or between the different communities of the people in the society. So this leads to what? The conflicts. So we need laws to serve as a basis for resolving the disputes here. Therefore, the judicial system has been introduced in the country, which takes up disputes and gives judgments accordingly based on the laws here. So our Constitution of India has provided an integrated single judicial system, that is there is hierarchy here. So first we have a Supreme Court at the top level, and we have a High Court, and next we have a subordinate court, that is District Court. Under District Court we have a Civil Court, Criminal Court and Revenue Court here. So we are going to discuss one by one here. The first one is the Supreme Court. The highest court of law in India is the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court protects the fundamental rights of the citizens. So Supreme Court of the country is the highest apex court, and its decisions are final in the constitutional matters and earlier decisions of various subordinate courts. Basically the apex court means the Supreme Court is meant to be the last and the highest court which takes up appeals against judgment of the High Court of the states here. The Supreme Court is formed by an Act of Parliament, and it is located in New Delhi, and it consists of the Chief Justice of India and 26 other judges. The judges of the Supreme Court and the Chief Justice of India, they are appointed by the President of India on the advices of Union Cabinet and the Prime Minister of India. The three functions, the functions performed by the Supreme Court are, it has three kinds of powers of jurisdiction. So that is one, to hear a case for the first time, or to review or change lower court's decision, and third one is to give opinion on specific issues of law. Second one is it acts as guardian of the fundamental rights of citizens. Third one is it acts as a guardian of our constitution. Fourth, it resolves disputes between the center and the states or in between the states. And last one is it gives advices to the President of India when it is required here. And second one is High Court. The High Court of they are at the middle level in the hierarchy of judiciary, and they are subordinate to the Supreme Court. The High Courts have full control over the subordinate courts in the state. So our constitution establishes High Courts in every state, but the parliamentary may establish by law a common High Court for even for more than two states here. For example, there is a single High Court for Chandigarh in Chandigarh for Punjab and Haryana state here. So the functions of High Courts are like Supreme Court. The High Court also acts as a court of record. Then the High Court can frame the required rules to carry out judicial functions, or it has the power to control all subordinate courts. Fourth, it can issue one rule regulating the working of subordinate courts, or it can ask the details of the proceedings from the subordinate courts. Next, it can transfer any case from one court to another court, or it has the power to investigate into the record or other concerned documents of any court subordinate to it. And each High Court has the power to appoint its administration staff and determine their salaries, allowances, and other conditions of service. And last one is the appointment, promotion, and posting of the district judges is made by the governor in consultation with the High Court itself. And last one is subordinate courts. So subordinate courts are which functions under the High Courts of concerned states, which includes district courts which operate at the district level, and we have magistrate courts at taluka level, and we have junior magistrate courts at city and city level here. The subordinate courts are of two types, that is civil courts and criminal courts. So basically the civil courts will solve the dispute matters of property or money transactions. Contractual agreements are taken up for hearing and judgments are passed accordingly. And criminal courts, what they do is the criminal matters such as murder, robbery, theft are taken up for hearing and judgments are passed accordingly. Next one is a person to be a district judge should have experience of minimum 7 years, and an advocate should be recommended by the High Court. So recently we have a Lok Adalat for or we call it as people's courts have came up so that they function faster than other courts, and they are what less expensive to deliver judges here. So thank you.